I'm 37 years old. I was out of shape. I was overweight. I was eating horribly. I wasn't advancing in my job. Wasn't happy. Wasn't getting along with my wife. And he goes, then I read your book. Well, I decided to write kids' books because I have 4 kids. And if you go out into the market these days and look for a book for kids that actually espouses the values that will make them lead a good life, there aren't very many. And so instead of complaining about it, I said, okay, well, I'll write some books. And the first book that I wrote was The Way of the Warrior Kid, which is about a little kid who can't do any pull-ups, so he gets made fun of, doesn't know his times tables, so he gets made fun of, doesn't know how to swim, so he gets made fun of and gets picked on by the school bully. So his life is miserable. Last day of school, kind of everything comes to a head. He's crying behind the library. On his way home, he remembers that his Uncle Jake is coming to stay with him for the summer. His Uncle Jake was in the SEAL teams. So his Uncle Jake is actually staying in his bedroom with him. So Uncle Jake shows up and says, hey, what do you want to do tomorrow? You don't have to go to school. You want to go for a swim? You want to go play basketball? What do you want to do? And the young kid named Mark says, well, I don't know how to swim, and I'm not good at sports, and I can't do anything, and I'm getting picked on, and he breaks down. And his Uncle Jake says, well, okay, let's look at these problems. All these different problems that you have, we can solve these problems. But you have to be committed, you have to be willing to put in the work. And so over the course of the summer, he teaches him how to study, teaches him to eat right, teaches him how to work out, teaches him how to swim, and teaches him jiu-jitsu so he knows how to fight. And it's transformational for the kid. He ends up writing his own Warrior Kid code about being a warrior. And that's what the story is. I was telling you earlier, I get little handwritten notes from kids all over the world that say, Dear Mr. Jocko, or Dear Uncle Jake, I'm 6 years old. I just did my first pull-up. And I know my times table's up to 5. Thank you, Melvin. And those are the most rewarding things that I get, are those things. But there was a really interesting, I got a letter, and I know you get all kinds of stuff from people that say, hey, thank you for doing this, thank you for showing me the path, whatever. And I get a lot of those, and I never read them on my podcast. I always read them, but I never read them. But I got one, this letter from this guy, and it was a great letter, and he says, I'm 37 years old, I was out of shape, I was overweight, I was eating horribly, I wasn't advancing in my job, wasn't happy, wasn't getting along with my wife. And he goes, then I read your book. He goes, and I started waking up a little bit early, I started just doing a little bit of workout, I stopped drinking beer on the road, I did this, I did that. And he said, it's been whatever it was, it's been 8 months, I've lost 22 pounds, I got a promotion, my wife and I are happy, and I just wanted to say thank you for writing that book. And by the way, the book was Way of the Warrior. And so that's the one, it took me by surprise, because I've written the Discipline Equals Freedom Field Manual, which is really focused on this kind of stuff for adults. And he read that kid's book, and it had a big impact. So, and people say all the time, hey, you flanked us because you wrote this book, you said it's for kids, but every one of those moms and dads that reads those books go, oh, this is what it is. So that's how I ended up writing all these kids' books, just seeing the struggles that my kids went through growing up. And this is the other thing that made me do it was, when you're an adult, right, and your kid has some problem, you're kind of like, whatever. It's, you're running a business, or like I was in the military, and my problems are these big giant problems of we're at war with other countries, right? There's guys being killed. That's a problem. And I look at my daughter and say, oh, she doesn't know her times tables. Who cares, right? And what I realized is when you're a kid, that's the whole world, right? The whole world is you feel stupid because you didn't know your times tables yet. And that's a real story. That story in The Way of the Warrior Kid was my oldest daughter, who's very smart, young. Well, she's old now and goes to one of the best country colleges in the world, so she's not dumb. But she came home from school one day and said, "I'm dumb." And I kind of said, "What are you talking about?" She said, "I'm stupid." I said, "What do you mean?" She said, "All the kids know their times tables and I don't know them." And I said, "Well, how much have you studied them?" And she said, "What do you mean?" And I said, "Well, you need to study them, you need to learn them." And so I sat her down, we made flashcards, and she studied them, and in an hour she knew all of her times tables. Of course, this is my fault, bad dad, I didn't teach her how to study. But, in her mind, she thought she was stupid. But, I said, you're not born knowing the times tables, you need to study them. So, if I can make that mistake as a dad that cares about his kids, how many other parents are making that mistake? How many other kids go through life and they go, "Oh, I'm stupid," or "Oh, I'm not strong. I can't do any pull-ups, I'm not strong." Actually, have you ever done pull-ups before? No. Oh, guess what? In order to get strong, you gotta do pull-ups. And I talk about this in the book. Sure, are there some kids that are gonna be able to do pull-ups out of the gate? Sure. Are there some kids that can learn their times tables really quickly? Sure. You're not gonna be great at everything. But you can get better as long as you have the discipline, put your mind to it, and are willing to work hard. So there's the kids' books.